In this video, we're going to go over my backpacking gear in detail, gear that I've spent the last 8 years and 4,000 miles perfecting. It has a tent with actual room in it, a 25% wider air pad, a framed backpack with a 1/2 inch of padding, a sleep system that goes all the way down to freezing, a giant pillow, a gas stove, full rain gear, and it all just weighs 7.5 pounds. If that seems impossible to you, then just keep watching. We'll also go over gear that I sometimes bring. I'll review very quickly some budget items for the big four. That's your tent, your quilt, your sleeping pad, and your backpack. And at the very end, I'll go over what I wear while hiking in 3-season conditions. Okay, let's go deeper into the backcountry, seeing more things, all without destroying your body with a heavy pack. Starting with the tent. The tent this year is the Durston X-Mid Pro one-person tent. Usually I don't go anywhere near one-person tents because they never have enough room inside of the tent. But that changes with this tent. It has an amazing 32 inches of width and 90 inches of length, which is important because I want to keep my gear away from campsite animals. The tent has 2 doors for cross ventilation, and the tent goes all the way to the ground to prevent rain splashback. Now then, Durston tents have a huge following, and some of its more intense members may say that this tent is absolutely bulletproof in bad weather, but I would not take this tent or any trekking pole supported tent in sustained winds over 30 miles an hour. All the trekking poles and trekking pole supported tents are just elevating the fabric off of the ground. All that fabric then becomes just kind of like a sail. And yes, you can have guy lines and guy out points, but it's not the same as having poles that directly support the fabric of the tent. If you're camping in more open areas, you're going to need a more traditional tent where the poles are sitting right underneath the tent fabric. But where I camp in the Mountain West, I can usually find a windbreak of some kind, a stand of trees or a rock wall, so it's not a big deal. The backpack this year is the KS40 from KS Ultralight. The KS40 only weighs 16.3 ounces but can carry 27 pounds of gear, which is my heaviest carry weight on a 5-day trip. It can carry this weight thanks to the external frame stays and the 1/2 inch of closed cell foam cushioning I have in the pad pockets. With backpacks, I do not buy more backpack than I need. It's one of those concepts of ultralight where you buy what you need and all of what you need, but nothing more than that. For instance, the famous Southwest Hyperlight 2400 can carry 40 pounds, but almost weighs double what the KS40 weighs. So I wouldn't use that backpack. So you can take that weight savings and bring nothing, or bring more chairs, or more beers, or I don't care if you bring a robe and just get weird in the backcountry. Personally, I like to bring full cans of chili for chili 5-ways. It's heavy, they're delicious, just don't sleep next to me. The only thing about the KS40 is that it's pretty small. My backpacking gear fits in there, but just fits in there. Later in the video, I'm going to go over a backpack that I bring when I need more room, and it's a great backpack. Next, let's go over the sleeping quilt. New to me as of 2022 is the Katabatic Palisade quilt. It has the best pad attachment system I have ever used, with the lateral clips limiting drafts and keeping the quilt on the pad. The horizontal baffles are well stuffed, which keeps the down from moving. It has a differential cut, so you're tossing and turning, doesn't affect the loft of the down. Its roomy footbox is contoured to your feet. It's made with Pertex Quantum fabric, which I like because it lets your body vapor escape, but it's not so breathable that if you knock into something, the warm air that you've worked so hard to warm up in the baffle escapes, gets pushed outside of the baffle. The only downside with this quilt, and really any quilt, is that any drafts on the backside of the quilt at 35 degrees tend to wake me up. So in the future, I might be moving to the Nunatak Sastrugi or the Feathered Friends Tanager, which is exactly like the quilt, but there's no open back, so there's 0% chance of drafts. And perhaps the biggest plus, you don't have to mess around with clips or straps when at the end of the day, when you're getting camp set, what you really want to be doing is either eating or watching that sunset or hanging out. It's just a much more simple system. Okay, let's go over the sleeping pad. For my sleeping pad, it's the durable, light, and warm, and now mostly quiet Thermarest X-Lite. The X-Lite's patented baffle system is basically a thing of genius and supplies more warmth for very little weight. As always, I buy 25-inch wide pads because sleeping on narrow pads is a recipe for waking up as your elbows and your feet fall off the pad. And overall, it's kind of a ridiculous concept to act like these smaller 20-inch normal wide air pads are comfortable to sleep on. If you don't believe me, blow up your 20-inch wide pad, put it in the bed you sleep in at home, and you'll see how it's just too small to make sense. Good sleep to me means tossing and turning without your elbows or feet falling off, so your tissues can get blood moving through them. Real quick, do me a favor and hit that like button. If you hit it every time I pass a hiker blasting music on a Bluetooth speaker, I will slap them just for you. Since my last gear video in 2021, I've had to slap over 20,000 of these people, but they still don't learn. So this year, I'm gonna have to use my stronger hand. Next, let's go over the rest of my packed gear. There's no doubt that the Gossamer Gear 1/8 inch sleeping pad is the most versatile piece of gear in my kit. As you've seen, it's my backpack's cushioning, but at night it protects the bottom of my air pad from rocks and cactus needles. It prevents my air pad from slipping around, it adds warmth to my sleeping system, and it's also a backup if my air pad leaks. During the day, I'll use it at breaks to sit on or to lay on, and should things get real cold, I can wrap it around my torso or legs to keep warm. No other piece of gear does so much. The stakes I use are a mix of Rudolacura stakes and Easton Nanos. To me, tent stakes are a trip dependent thing depending on the soil that you're going to be around, but usually whatever tent you have, the less critical guy outs, you can just use a rock or a log. Next, my sleeping pillow destroys the concept that to have a big, comfortable pillow, it's gonna have to be heavy. The inner of this pillow is from a Nemo Philo Elite Luxury pillow. I then put it inside this green dry bag, which during the day is my pack liner to keep all my gear dry. I then stuff in my down jacket or whatever I'm not using to make the pillow extra soft and to give height to the pillow. I then wrap my buff around it to make a pillowcase, and what you're left with is a gigantic pillow that's almost worthy of home use. And the pillow is so wide that it tends to just stay on the pad. You don't even need a strap to keep the pillow on. Just like the concept of small sleeping pads, the same concept applies to pillows. You don't want your head falling off a small pillow because that's going to wake you up. Another advantage of using that green dry bag as your pack liner is that it compresses your clothing better than the popular Nylofume bags. The dry bag clips are also more reliable, especially if you're crossing rivers. Next, let's go over my rain gear and my extra clothing. My rain jacket is the Skylight Gear Sil Nylon rain jacket with long pit zips. Because no rain jacket is actually breathable, I like to go for non-breathable fabrics that have big pit zips to let body vapor out. But the Skylight jacket, while it's not an emergency jacket, it is for areas where I like to hike out in the western United States where rainstorms are pretty brief. If I'm going to super rainy areas, I use a Goretex Shakedry jacket, but I'll go over that jacket later in the video. My rain pants are Montbell Versalites. Rain pants are mostly for warmth and cold temperatures and to block mosquitoes while you're in camp, but if it's rainy, they'll keep you safe if you have to walk longer distances. For cold weather walking, to sleep in, and to change into after a long walk in the rain, I use Alpha 60 long johns from Senshi Designs. Alpha feels great next to the skin, and while I do wish there was some wool component to this fabric, there's still nothing lighter or warmer to kind of use for active layer bottoms or sleep bottoms. For insulation while I'm walking or while I'm sleeping, I use the Leave Outdoor Alpha 90 hoodie. When paired with a shell and your normal daytime shirt, this hoodie will easily keep you warm while hiking at 30 degrees. Really, the big downside of Alpha 90 is that it will catch on branches, so don't use this top if you're bushwhacking. Another thing about Leave Outdoor, which I'm a huge fan of, is that he's working with Octa fabric, which I'm a big fan of. It's slightly more durable and it's slightly more wind resistant than Alpha tops. And he's also working on Sil Nylon rain jackets. So the jacket I just talked about, the Skylight Gear, that's discontinued. So look to Leave Outdoor for those super light rain jackets with the pit zips. For insulation when I'm sitting around camp or when I'm sleeping and I need to help out my sleep system, I use the Booooooo down jacket. This jacket uses about 3.3 ounces of 850 fill, which I'm a fan of. I don't like super lightweight down, 1,000 fill down, because it's just not tough enough. It's not resistant enough to when you're moving. I like a slightly more durable down, a more resistant down, and 800 to 850 is that kind of class of down that I like. And then the fill weight, 3.3 ounces is a good starting point for 3-season use if you're just sitting still, but you may be able to get away with just a little bit less if you're using an Alpha top, because an Alpha 90 top is pretty warm. But the biggest thing about the Booooooo jacket and all down jackets is that you need to buy jackets that have infrequent sew lines. When a jacket has infrequent sew lines, it allows the baffle to have actual loft to it, which loft is the thing that gives you the warmth. It's more loft means more trapped air, and that's warmer. And you can see on the Booooooo jacket here, it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sew lines, which is relatively infrequent when it comes to down jackets. You can see jackets like the Mountain Hardwear Ghost Whisperer that have all these little sew lines. They're not warm jackets. They may feel warm, but just for the weight, you're not getting as much warmth as you could with these other designs. Each one of those sew line represents a cool or cold spot because there's no insulation there. It's just two pieces of fabric sewn together. The Bora jacket has been long discontinued, so if you're going to look today, look to Timmermade, Nunatak, Goosefeet Gear, and Montbell. New to me this year are Alpha 90 socks from Farpoint. I'll use them to sleep in, but I can use them on my hands like mittens on a cold morning, which if you think about it, it's going from feet to hands, which is kind of gross, but, well, it's kind of gross. My spare socks are Injinji liner socks. I like to use the thinnest sock possible because 1, it doesn't build up heat on hot days, and 2, if it gets wet, it dries more quickly than a thicker sock. A lot of people like to use socks, especially thick socks or doubled up socks, as a crutch for what is, in reality, a bad fitting shoe. When you go to buy a shoe for the trail, it's my recommendation, it should just fit straight out of the box. Shoe salesmen all over the world love to tell you, hey, it should break in. Not really. If the shoe fits, it should fit right out of the box and you should be on your way. Another 2-use item is my mosquito head net. I also use it as a stuff sack for all my spare clothes. Now let's go over my food and my water system. While it's not the most efficient or windproof stove, the BRS 3000 is cheap, super light, and just gets the job done. I upgraded to a 600mm Tokes ultralight pot. It uses their thin wall titanium. Definitely go for that one. It also has markings and the handles are nice. My pot lid this year is nothing. I lost it last year, right here on the Cirque Loop at Shadow Lake. If you find it, leave it here because I'm coming back for it. So don't touch it. I'll be right there. My new food storage are Wallaby Mylar bags. Have you ever wondered why you can walk into an REI and stand next to 400 bagged meals with spices and you don't smell any food? It's the aluminum film in the bags is why. Odor molecules can't escape through the denser metal. The Wallaby bags weigh 1.37 ounces, about the same as your normal food storage bags, but they're far more odor-proof than OPSAC or smelly-proof bags. Wallaby bags cost way less per bag as well. The 1 gallon size for me holds about 3 to 3.5 days of food. And then on the outside, I'm going to have my first day's food already. So in total, about 4 to 4.5 days of food. My spoon is from handmaderecycle.com. It's made of ultralight pear wood. It has a really good bite volume, and you can even order a specific handle length from them. And honestly, who wouldn't want a spoon made by a guy that looks like this? Next is my water filter system. It's the Katadyn Be Free, which is the lightest and fastest filter available. With a 600ml bag and a 1-liter plastic bottle, I can get 6 to 8 miles, which is usually all I need to get to the next water source. The wide bag opening makes it easy to scoop from low-flow water sources, and the bag is tough. If the bag ever gets a hole, I can patch it with tenacious tape, which is in my repair kit. Next, let's go over my Ditty bag, which has all the little pieces of gear that you need when you're hiking. All of these little pieces of gear go in this Z-Packs Cuban Ditty bag, which I like because it weighs as much as a plastic bag, but it'll last you for years. My headlamp is the Nightcore New 25. I like it because it has enough battery and lumens to hike at night for up to 4 hours if you need to. Next is the Renegade Outdoor razor blade knife, and this isn't one of those thin razor blades, it's a thick razor blade. And I used to use scissors, but the reason why I got this is because I needed some way to cut vegetables or sausage or even an avocado, and this thing gets the job done. There's also a bonus, it has a ferro rod on top if you ever need to throw sparks to start a fire or to light your stove. I use Dr. Bronner soap for when you really need to clean your hands. Listen, I've been a medical professional since 2021, and I'll get right to the point. Hand sanitizer is not going to clean poop off your hands. So always bring at least soap. I use a Bamboo Kids toothbrush. I don't use cut down toothbrushes, and I don't use those little teeny tiny ones that when you're getting the back of your teeth, you're definitely going to be sticking your fingers in your mouth to get to the back of your teeth. Again, medical professional, do not stick your fingers in your mouth when you're hiking. I always take matches and also evidently a hot pink lighter. I've had lighters break on me. That's why I always carry high quality matches. So I use Leukotape for blisters if I ever get them, but I rarely do. Again, the footwear point I made earlier. And I also use Leukotape if I get a cut in conjunction with sterile gauze. So you take the gauze, you take a little piece of it, put it wherever the injury is, put the Leukotape over it. It's way better than Band-Aids. You don't really need to carry Band-Aids when you use this system. The drugs I carry are for anti-diarrheal, antihistamines, and also ibuprofen. But also sometimes I carry a little bit of aspirin because heart attacks are a real thing there. So I usually carry at least 350 milligrams of aspirin just in case. My sew kit consists of some high quality Gooderman 40 thread and a needle with a large eye. Try to pre-thread the needle so you don't have to fumble around with it when your hands are cold. And it's also super helpful to just put it in this little sliver of cardboard and wrap the thread around it. If you ever have to use your thread and needle out in the field, use your spoon as a thimble to push the needle through fabric. I carry Cuban tape for my shelter, but it sticks to many things well, and I always carry one larger patch for shelter repairs. As I mentioned before, if I ever have to repair my bee-free bag or if my sleep pad gets a hole in it, I use Tenacious Tape Flex Tape. Lastly, I do use a compass and thermometer, and I'll tell you about navigation that apps are my main, but I always do carry paper maps, and I keep up on the paper maps as the trip progresses. That way I know where I'm at all times. This 5,000 milliamp battery from lightsmith.com can fully charge my phone one time, which is enough to keep my phone in airplane mode for 4 days. This battery is new to me this year, so we'll see how it works, and we'll see if I lose these orange end caps. Okay, that's it for all my gear. Now let's lay it all out, see it, and I'm going to go over some things I only sometimes bring. So I went over the Booooooo jacket. A down jacket isn't always the best. If I was in super rainy areas or fringe seasons where I might have to hike in the coat, I would carry a synthetic jacket instead of down. And that synthetic jacket would probably be the Enlightened Equipment Torrid jacket. Also on the topic of down jackets, their hoods are not the best for both walking in, hanging out in, and sleeping in because they leave too much of your face exposed. That's why I use a down balaclava on cold trips. They cinch down tight, leaving just your mouth and nostrils exposed. Check out this picture of me. I was on a ferry heading back to Vancouver. It was super cold. I whipped out this balaclava, and you can see from this picture just how good the lateral face coverage is. I don't even have the opening cinched tight, but you can tell just how much better protection balaclavas offer. When I finally replace my Booooooo jacket, it's going to be with a hoodless down jacket, and the balaclava will come on every trip. Okay, so I mentioned it before, for all day cold rains, I'll bring the Montbell Peak Dry Shell jacket, and not the super light sil nylon jackets. The Peak Dry Shell has Goretex Shakedry. It's a material that will never wet out in extended rain. Unfortunately, Goretex isn't making Shakedry anymore, so I would turn to Columbia OutDry, which is the same kind of premise. The membrane is on the outside. It's a thinner layer because it's only two membrane, and the membrane is on the outside, and it will essentially never wet out. Another sometimes item is bug spray. I like to let my shirts and pants really do most of the bug blocking, and a sunscreen stick is far better than lotions. A lot of times when you're hiking, you have dirty hands. It's much better to just use a sunscreen stick to put it on the locations without getting your hands all messed up. Next, I bring the Garmin InReach Mini when I can't get reliable phone service. It's great for letting people watch your progress, messaging trail angels for rides if you need it, and calling for rescue for yourself or for others. New this year is a FlexTail miniature air pump. I use it so I don't introduce vapor from my breath into the inside of the sleeping pad. I've ruined 2 pads that way with mold on the inside of the pad. If I'm unsure if I'll need pants or shorts on a trip, I'll bring the Mech Tech pants. To me, they're way better than the Patagonia Terrabonds. I know the Patagonia Terrabonds are a favorite and they're light at 6 1/4 ounces, but the durability just is not there. This pant has nylon as opposed to polyester, which I prefer. It has nice ankle zips, pockets that stuff won't fall out of. It's got a seat gusset, so the flexibility of the pant is awesome, and the fabric weight is ideal. Okay, I mentioned earlier that when I need more room, I pick a different backpack, and it's again a KS backpack called the Omega. And no, I am not sponsored by this guy or anything. He just makes great backpacks with tons of options. So if I actually had a Gear of the Year award, it would go to this backpack. It has 56 liters of space, can carry 32 pounds comfortably, but only weighs 21.2 ounces. I don't care how many REIs you walk into, you're never going to find a better backpack than this. What's genius about it is the Omega takes your grandpa's full hoop metal frame, shrinks it down, and contours the metal to your body, as you can see here. And for both the KS40 and the Omega, you get over 30 different options of choices on how to configure your backpack, and no one does that. Also, one of the best parts is that the guy that makes these backpacks is this French guy, Laurent. He lives in Japan, and the Japanese yen is weak against many currencies, so you're getting these custom-made backpacks touched by one person with 30 different options for a steal. Okay, and for the very last thing I sometimes bring, it's this plant. And I bring it just to make the tent a little bit more homey. In years past, I've gone over budget items in the video because ultralight gear can sometimes be expensive. Now, Also in ultralight, you're taking fewer things, so it can also offset a little bit. But in general, these tents, these quilts, they are super expensive, right? But this year, I'm going to do all of that explaining of my budget picks in the description below. But I just want to go over on the same note that this is my obsession of trying to find the lightest weight gear that still retains objective comfort. But in watching all this stuff about gear and looking at other videos about gear, it's just gear. And I just want to convey the biggest thing about your gear is that I know it's good. All gear these days is basically good. There's very few items that are actual garbage, and they're usually vetted out real quick. The most important thing is that you use your gear in the woods, so go out there and use it. Next, let's go over what I wear while backpacking in 3-season conditions. My shoes are the Topo Athletic Pursuits, and as a physical therapist, these are the best shoes I've ever seen. It has a truly wide, but not overly wide forefoot. The outsole is Vibram Mega Grip, which is so good I actually make it the starting point for looking for hiking shoes. The trail legs are appropriate for muddy trails. The shoe's midsole is a 28mm stack height, which is a Goldilocks stack height because it cushions your foot, but it isn't so tall that you'll feel unstable while walking on trails. The upper mesh is breathable, but it doesn't let fine particles through the upper and get into your socks. The toe bumper is protective, and the overall durability of the shoe is excellent. I really feel like with these shoes, there's really no reason to look at Ultra anymore, especially the Lone Peak shoe. My shorts are the Marmot Juniper 5-inch shorts. They have a durable nylon that can stand up to trail demands and even butt scooting on rocks. They have an outward-facing drawstring so you don't get discomfort while wearing a pack belt. The pockets are mesh, and it has a zipper on the back pocket. The Marmot Juniper is just hits the mark when it comes to a hiking short. Okay, moving up the body, this is going to get somewhat controversial because both in cool weather and in hot weather, I've been using mesh base layers. And if you've never heard of mesh base layers, I'm going to explain what is so good about them. So while they look very weird, and I agree, this is not the best look, the function they provide is awesome. So when sweat comes to the surface of your skin, the sweat can immediately turn to vapor because of these little holes. The sweat will just sit there in the hole and change from sweat to vapor. This is really good because you get an extra cooling effect from this liquid to vapor change. Everyone's heard of how steam burns are worse than if you poured boiling water onto your skin, right? Well, the reason is because when the steam goes from a vapor to a liquid on your skin, there's extra energy inputted into the system, and the system is your skin. Well, the exact opposite holds true when liquid on your skin turns from sweat into vapor. You get an added cooling effect because heat is being taken out of the system in that chemical change. That phase change from sweat to vapor has to occur on your skin, and traditional base layers do not let that happen. Traditional base layers will take the liquid sweat and immediately take it into the fabric, and if you believe marketing, will wick it away to where it can evaporate later. Wicking is a thing, but it doesn't work as well as manufacturers of garments would like you to believe. Your body can just overwhelm a standard base layer so easily, and you know it's true. In a hot day with a sun shirt on, the sweat is just soaking right here. So I've been using very open base layers in high heat, and I've never felt cooler or drier ever. Now, two very important things about what I just went over. One, in high humidity situations, say you're in Florida or something like that, the effect isn't going to be as good because the air is humid already. It already has a lot of water in the air, so your sweat's going to come to the surface, and it can't release into the air because there's already too much air, or there's already too much water in the air. The second thing to remember is that this only works is when a shirt over it, and no, I'm not wearing these mesh base layers just on their own. I'm wearing a sun hoodie over it. That sun hoodie that you have over the mesh base layer has got to be breathable. It's got to let air in. It's got to let air get into those mesh base layer opening holes, take that vapor out, and that's when you get the best sort of combination of the system. Which leads me to my sun hoodie, and this is a very niche thing because I've tried sun hoodies over the years from Patagonia, cheap ones on Amazon, from every brand name that you can think of, asking on Reddit Ultralight, what's the lightest one? Trying that, still wasn't light enough until I got to the Outdoor Research Echo hoodie, and that's the sun hoodie that I use. The material that the Outdoor Research hoodie is made of is so breathable, it can let that open mesh base layer really do its thing and keep me really dry, My sunglasses are the Sunski Couloir sunglasses. They have these side protectors on the edge of the glasses that keep your eyes from drying out on windy days and help keep the sun down when you're in sunny conditions. The versions I have a brown lens, which I think is good. I never like to get sunglasses that are too dark. I mean, I'm out there to see things. I just really don't like dark lenses in my sunglasses. Lastly, I wear a simple trucker hat. This one's for big heads. I'll put the link below, but don't buy it unless you have a huge head like I do. I use a cheap Casio watch that I got years ago. And the buff that you saw on my pillow earlier acts as a neck warmer, an ear warmer, and it could even be a sleep mask if you wanted it to be. So there's a saying that says you can be comfortable in camp with all the luxuries that you need, which is like a good tent, a pad, a warm sleep system, all the things you need, or you can be comfortable on trail with a super lightweight pack, but you can't be both things. Well, in 2024, if anything, I hope this video has shown that that's kind of over. That's like a saying from like 2010 and behind, certainly a saying of the 90s, 80s, 70s, 60s. Okay, if you've made it this far into the video, we're in the deep end together. Feel free to follow me on Instagram. On Instagram, you'll see behind the scenes stuff, trip updates. Occasionally I'll do a random gear review, like a real short one. You'll get updates on when I post a new video and just normal Instagram stuff.